Hi BookTube, so it's June 1st and that means it's time for me to pick the books I plan on reading this month. It's going to be a busy month for me. I have a travel scheduled or vacation of sorts scheduled at the middle of June till the end of June, so like basically half of my month is going to be traveling, but I have plenty of books that I want to read leading up to that trip. And then the second week of June, there is a Portland book festival where there's something like 60 bookstores that are hosting different events, and I think like there might be some sales and author events and things like that, like trivia nights and what all are going to be happening. So I'm going to be going to some of those next week, and so I'll be trying to vlog that. I know last year I did a Portland Book Festival vlog, so I want to do that again this year. It's to me, it's even more fun in a way than the independent bookstore day because it's more than one day, so I can fit in more bookstores it's more congenial with my schedule. So we'll see how that goes. That's my plans for the month. And then as far as the books I'm going to be reading, I am going to be focusing on June on the Range. It's a wonderful event, and I'll leave a link in the description below to the creators. And leading up to June on the Range being created here on BookTube, my exposure to Westerns was mostly a Larry McMurtry and just a few Louis L'Amour books that I just stumbled upon at little free libraries. But since the June on the Range Western readathon, I found several different authors that I like. But this year, because I'm focusing on the books on my shelf behind me, I have so many Western themed books that are nonfiction. So it's like, the Pioneer, Frontier, Gold Rush, things like that. And so I have a few fiction books that I found on my shelf, but most of these are going to be nonfiction. There's a little bit of a twist, I guess, for me for June on the Range. I might have done this last year as well. I feel like I read more fiction than I am this year, but yes, so let's get into all of the books. So I wanted to start with two books that I've already started because I knew that I was going to be traveling. I wanted to get a head start on these two because they're both anthologies of either one's a short story collection and one is a essay collection. So I have Great Tales of the West by John Jakes. Well, the introduction's by John Jakes, and then it's compiled by Bill Pronzini and Martin H. Greenberg. I just found this at a little free library 2 weeks ago, and since I knew June on the Range was coming up, I had to get this one. And there's a whole host of authors, and I've read several of these. Max Brand, let's see here, Zane Grey, A.B. Guthrie Jr., O. Henry, Owen Wister, Mark Twain. Let's see, who else do I recognize? Jack London, Elmore Leonard, Louis L'Amour. So yeah, those are all of the authors, and I just started it, and so a couple of days ago, and I'm on page 47, and I have a Western themed bookmark in here. I think I found this at a little free library as well, but it is the Grand Teton National Park, and it has the different the mountain range with the Tetons with their different names on here. So I thought it was fitting for this. So there's that one. It's a chunkier book, so that's why I wanted to start early. I might not get through all of this, but I want to read at least a short story a day leading up to because when I'm traveling, I'm not planning on, I should say, when I'm traveling, I don't plan on bringing any of the physical books with me. I'm going to be reading books on my Kindle. So I do plan on seeing what I can find. My Libby app has a lot of books on there. I'll have to see what Westerns I have borrowed. I know for those, I plan on reading B.J. Daniels, which is a romance Western author where she focuses, it has romance in there, but a lot of it is like suspense thriller kind of story. So I want to read her books, and she actually lives in like small town Montana, so I feel like she really, you can feel that in her writing. So I want to read her, and maybe some Louis L'Amour and like the Max Brand H.W. Brands. That's not who I'm thinking of. Max Brand and Louis L'Amour, and those I might read, but I'm not sure yet. But yeah, so these are the ones I'm going to read leading up to that. And then I have The Best of the West, an anthology of classic writing from the American West, and this is edited by Tony Hillerman. I really like this cover, and so here are some of the authors on for this anthology. So we have Edward Abbey, let's see, Calamity Jane Cannery. Who else do I recognize on here? Meriwether Lewis, you know, of Lewis and Clark. Let's see, Zebulon Pike, Upton Sinclair, Wallace Stegner, John Steinbeck, and many more. Yeah, for sure there's many more because this is over 500 pages. I am on essay number 6, The Stone Thone Found by Frank Thompson. I don't know what thone means, but yeah, I'm on essay number 6 and I'm on page 16, so I have a ways to go. There's over 500 pages, but I like how this is broken down because it talks about like in, you know, the beginning of the West, and there's many entries for that. And there's the original Western, there's the Navajos, the Hispanos, frontier life, cowboys, tall tales, and practical jokes. There is some fiction in here. Characters, the mining, women, law and disorder, travel, the military, the Western way with words, and then there's a last section on fiction. Okay. So yeah. Oh, and the bookmark for this one is a bookmark I have from the Grand Canyon, and it's one where it shifts, so you can the animals shift with it, and so I just yeah, I like looking at all the animals in here. And this is like an old bookmark I had for like decades. Like, okay, so then I will finish up with my fiction picks. I just have a couple more. This one, I found it at the same Little Free Library as I found this one a couple of weeks ago. Louis L'Amour, The Outlaws of Mesquite, and I've read several of his like dime store westerns, but this, when I was looking into it, is a collection of his frontier stories. And my goodness, look at the list. It's so, the font is so small because he wrote so much. But yeah, this is frontier stories, and here's the stories that are included on there. I'm not sure if they're, you know, collected in a different bind up, but here's the author on the back. And so I've never read his short stories unless I've read them like randomly in like a bind up like this, but I've never read like a dedicated collection. So technically I'm going to be trying to read three like short stories or essay collections. So that's a lot, because already, you know, these two I'm reading one a day, and that takes the time away from, you know, the other books you're focusing on. So for me to focus on 3 books in addition to like my one main book a day, it's a lot. It's very heavy, but there you go. And then the other fiction book is The Fire and the Ore by Olivia Hawker. This I found, again, a Little Free Library 2 years ago. It might have been on my TBR last year. I'm not sure. But this is interesting because it's following 3 women, and from what I remember, yeah, it's like part of like the Mormon faith. So it's like 1857. There are 3 women, 1 stranger, is come together in unpredictable Utah territory, hopeful, desperate, and willful. They'll allow nothing on earth or in heaven to stand in their way. And it's like it's following their newfound Mormon faith. They're making this pilgrimage from England to Utah, and I'm just like wondering, like, are they going to be sister wives or something at some point? Like this is probably like the old what is it called? Fundamental Mormon faith. I'm not sure. So there's that one. This is very different from things I've read before. I've only read, thinking about it, like for the Mormon religion, I've only read a couple of books on like the Mormon history. So this will be interesting. And then I have a huge stack of nonfiction books that I'm adding to my list of books I want to read. This is a lot to read in 2 weeks. I don't know how much I'm going to get through, but we can only hope for the best. This House of Sky, Landscapes of Western Mind by Ivan Doig. I remember I read a whole slew of his books a couple years ago, and I could never figure out how to pronounce his name, and I still don't. But I haven't read any of his books in a while, a couple of years, but I remember really liking his work. He wrote lots of like Western themed fiction series, and so this is a nonfiction book about his growing up years in the wilderness of Montana with his father and grandmother, with sheep herders and small town saloons and valley ranches. And it's all about, you know, like the west of the past, and probably maybe like 50 years ago or so, I'm assuming. And then I have Teresa Jordan, Riding the White Horse Home, a Western family album. And let me see here. Here is the author. And there's a map. Let's see, where her home is in southeastern Wyoming. It's like a faded blue, so it's hard to see the towns which she's near. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really faded and hard to see. But yeah, I'm not sure. But that's where it is. You think that would make it easier to identify? But it says in 1886, Teresa's great-grandfather, J.L. Jordan, left Maryland for the West. It was on Wyoming's Iron Mountain that the Jordan Ranch began and survived for nearly 100 years. It's her story, Teresa's story of 4 generations of her family's devotion to the land. It requires physical courage and psychic endurance. Okay, so that'll be interesting to read. They have Rivers in the Desert, William Mulholland, and The Inventing of Los Angeles by Margaret Leslie Davis. And, LA is, built in a desert, and there's millions of people that live there. And I used to be one of them years and years and years ago. And I've been on Mulholland Drive and driven through the canyons and whatnot. So this was interesting for me to find. And let me see here. Here's the author. And she was a staff writer for the distinguished legal publication, the Los Angeles Daily Journal, and she lives in Los Angeles. And so it's following, in 1907, there was an army that built the largest aqueduct in Western Hemisphere, 235 miles of canals. And so, it's all about how, because in order to build the city of Los Angeles, they had to provide water. So, and I've driven by the canals. I've seen them, all up and down, Southern California. Then there is, I might not be pronouncing this right, Watuya, the Teos Trail, or Prairie Travel and Scalp Dances with a look at Los Ranchers from Mullback and the Rocky Mountain Campfire by Louis H. Girard. And it says in 1846, Louis Girard traveled into the wild Rocky Mountain West and left this fresh and vigorous account, which A.B. Guthrie says contains the genuine article, the Indian, the trader, the mountain man, their dress and behavior, speech and country, and the climate they lived in. So this is like the old West. And let's only see when this was published. Let me see here. 1955. But when is this taking place? And here's the Santa Fe Trail. I'm just curious. 1844. Yeah, it's based on the Josiah Gregg map from the Commerce of the Prairies, 1844. So when does, let's see. I just wonder if the author themselves included a date here. Yeah, 1846. Okay, February 1846 is when it starts out. So this is, yeah, for sure an older Western, perspective on things. Hardscrabble, Observations on a Patch of Land by John Graves. And let's see, John Graves makes us feel and understand his profound commitment to 400 acres of rough Texas hill country he named Hardscrabble. We learn how he came to know and feel a part of this country's rocky ledges, earth and growing things, its scrub, cedar, and Johnson grass, its wolves, snakes, and wheeling buzzards, its special idiosyncrasies of light and weather. So I've actually, for Texas, I've driven through the Panhandle, Amarillo area, and I visited Austin probably 10-15 years ago. And I remember when I visited Austin, I did a bunch of drives through the Texas hill country, and I remember there's trees. It reminds me kind of like the California trees, where they're more shrunken, and the leaves are different. They're like a waxy kind of look to them, because they're holding in the water. So I feel like I can picture the trees and all of that in this area. So we have Jim Bridger, Mountain Man, a biography by Stanley Vestal. And John Bridger is a person, if you read books on the Western history, you'll see his name pop up quite a bit, with the Oregon Trails and things like that. And so I've never read a book dedicated to him. And so I feel like this is a book a long time coming that I should have read, much sooner than later. But let's see. Even among the mighty mountain men, Jim Bridger was a towering figure. fur trapper and Indian fighter extraordinary. He was one of the greatest explorers and pathfinders in American history. He could not write his own name, but at 18, he had braved the fury of Missouri, ascending it in a keelboat flotilla, steered by that stalwart Mike Fink. By 1824, when he was only 20, he had discovered the Great Salt Lake. Later, he was to open the overland route, which was the path of the overland stage, the Pony Express, and the Union Pacific. One of the foremost trappers in the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, he was a legend in his own time as well as ours. He remains one of the most important scouts and guides in the history of the entire West. So yeah, like I said, if you read anything about Western history, you'll see his name pop up. So yeah, is there a picture of him maybe in here? Yeah, here he is, Jim Bridger. Okay. We have One Woman's West, Recollections of the Oregon Trail and Settling the Northwest Country by Martha Gay Masterson, 1838 to 1916, and this is edited by Lois Barton. This is a book I've had on my shelf for quite a while. Like I said, I have so many of these kind of books that they kind of linger. So happy to have an excuse to get to them with this month. Let's see here. And this was written in 1978. Or, put together. Yeah. Because this goes all the way to 1916. Interesting. Okay. Then we have Listening for Coyote, A Walk Across Oregon's Wilderness by William L. Sullivan. This is a more, recent current day book. I found this actually, speaking of the Portland Book Festival, I'm pretty sure I bought this last year at that festival. So, yeah, it's signed by the author, and it came out. It was published by the Oregon State University Press and came out in 1988. Yeah. But I found it as a new book at one of the Oregons, one of the stores here in Oregon. But yeah, it seems to be like following the different trails, the climb up the Cascades, the Ochoco's, I've never been there, the Blue Mountains, Hell's Canyon. So yeah, some of these places I've not been to, but I've heard of them, and want to eventually explore them. So yeah, this will be interesting to read. Personally, backpacking, through the rugged wilderness. Then the last book here is Opportunity, Montana. Big Copper, Bad Water, and the Burial of an American Landscape by Brad Tyler. And let's see, here's the author here. He looks very serious in his author picture. He has lots of serious things to tell you, I guess. But in 2002, Texas journalist Brad Tyler strapped a canoe on his truck and moved to Montana, a state that has long exerted a mythic pull on America's imagination as an unspoiled landscape. The son of an engineer who reclaimed wastewater, Tyler was looking for a pristine river to call his own. What he found instead was a century's worth of industrial poison clogging the Clark Fork River, a decades-long engineering project to clean it up, and a forgotten town named Opportunity. This is reminding me of Rick Bass. I have several books way over here, but he was in several of his books. He was talking about, I believe is some of his books, talking about the different areas. When you think of like Montana, you think of like this pristine, clear water, and how I feel like he was like involved as an environmentalist in that area where he was living, or is living, to help with the water. And I know for sure he's trying to preserve his area, and so I feel like I've read about this for sure before. I think it's a very interesting topic to read about. And how I managed to, pick all of these books was, and it's kind of like a random assortment, is my nonfiction books, I have them alphabetized. And so I just went bookshelf by bookshelf to pick one from each shelf. And that's how I ended up with however many books I have here, along with the fiction and essay collection. So I have quite the amount of books, but they're all like, I feel like very interesting. Even if you don't live in the West, I find these topics very interesting, and these the different perspectives and the different time periods. Current day going all the way back. I think like the earliest one was 1846 was that the Teos Trail one. So yeah, 1846 all the way to current day, and how it's all evolving and yeah. Anyway, so let me know if you're participating in these events, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.